more in this area where we stand, where I stand. It just goes to show you how healthy this beach can be if we clean up the environment. If we could only clean it up, my people will no longer need to starve. We are starving. We are starving. We are having difficulties. What is this village going to be like 10 years from now? I don't know.
Oh, I'm stuck. I'm stuck. Okay.
There used to be a lot of these things around Abalone. You can get any amount you wanted, but people started coming in with planes and divers. Cleaned the place completely.
There was an American that come in here with about 8 divers. They cleaned it right out. We've never got them back yet. The abalone. Same way with the sea urchins. They're fast disappearing. The things that I seen as a young man back in the middle 20s and 30s, when everything began to change. I was able to, in my young day, pick up a bucket of clams, divide with, share with my neighbors. I am right at the door of this trap, the fish trap. The fish that are coming in here, they're attracted to this. It's barnacles. As the tide comes in, they throw some of these in the waters as they come in. As you go from way over there, they follow this, they come in inside the trap. So when they know they had enough, and they throw that off, there's enough here to feed so many people.
The beaches of this region can no longer supply adequate food to feed the people. Major pulp and paper companies discharge their waste in coastal waters. As well, over 75% of the beaches are contaminated by urban waste. Native people in the state of Washington were facing this situation when their struggle ended before the Supreme Court 12 years ago.
We've been to the United States Supreme Court 6 times before the decision came down the last time, and confirmed that we had a treaty right and a fishing right here in the state of Washington.
These rights have developed into full participation in the management of the salmon.
The Pacific salmon that we manage is the 6 species of salmon. The steelhead, the chum salmon, the coho salmon, the Chinook salmon, the pink salmon, and the sockeye salmon. They originate in our rivers, and they go out to the ocean, travel north to Canada, and up into the southeast Alaska into the cold water. And then they migrate back home. They stay out 4 or 5 years, and then they migrate back home. His cycle is clear around, and it starts all over again. And when he leaves and he comes back, we have a first fish ceremony, and I might invite my friends right here. So we have to try to balance these things, to have to make things better for us, make things better for our children and our old people. Make things better that we can leave them with things like this longhouse and things like these ceremonies that we have. Start planting cedar trees out here so our cedar trees can be grown again, even though it takes 500 years for these cedar trees to grow.
We've stood for over 100 years offering that gift of generosity. And the sad irony is that because of this generosity, we're the poorest in the land. There is no more place to run away from resource exploitation. We have nowhere to go. This is all we've got. And everything is being sucked out of the land and the water. On the food chain, Indians are just above the fish. So as Indians start dying of pollution, then white people have to take the warning that they're going to be next.
I'm going to tell you about the water now. When God had to withdraw himself from this world, he was crying for his creation. He was really crying for his creation. And his tears fell on the top of the mountains to become the first perpetual action of nature. First perpetual action of nature, and that's water. The rivers started to come, lakes started to form, creeks started to grow because of that tears of God. And he told the Indian people when he left this land, he says, don't you take too much of any one item. Why? Because it'll start a chain reaction, taking years and generations to rectify itself. It took the white man just about 300 years to clean out the United States of all the riches that belonged to the Indians. They come and stole it, stole it, stole it.
That so long as there's one Squamish Indian left alive on the face of the earth, we will continue to hold true to this one basic situation, that we believe we hold Aboriginal title to the Squamish traditional territories, and will hold true to that position for all time. And Canada and the province of British Columbia better basically understand that situation, because we're not going to go away.
We suffered for too damn long. You know, cut the crap. Let's talk about other people suffering for a change instead of us.
And
Since you guys screwed up the fisheries in the first place by overfishing Hobarton and Nitnat, and that's why you got a hatchery here now, because all the fish is disappearing.
And we are starting to see the commercial fishery be pushed more and more aside by the sports fishery. And those are non-Indian people pushing each other around. You can well guess where the Indian people lie in it. They're down at the bottom, getting pushed by everybody.
Since the end of the last century, laws and regulations have continuously threatened the Indians' right to fish. In 1987, a member of the Musqueam tribe, Ron Sparrow, was charged by the Department of Fisheries on the grounds that his net was too long.
They asked me if I would go into the dock so they could measure my net. The net was 45 fathoms long. So they cut off 20 fathoms of my net and seized it and charged me with fishing contrary to their rules and regulations.
After a series of unclear decisions in the lower courts, the case was finally brought to the Supreme Court of Canada, because what was involved was far more than the length of a net.
All the major fisheries companies, and province of BC, province of Alberta, province of Saskatchewan, Quebec, Newfoundland, and Ontario, were all lined up against the Mr. Sparrow and the Assembly of First Nations, arguing before the Supreme Court of Canada that Aboriginal rights to the fishery resource does not exist.
How would you feel, put yourself in our place, if tomorrow the Martians landed and told you no longer could live in Canada, you had to move, or else if you lived here you had to completely change everything about yourself? You know, just overnight, that's it. You no longer can live as a Canadian, you can no longer do anything you want, you have to become a Martian.
In June of 1991, a decision was finally rendered by the Supreme Court of Canada.
The ruling quite plainly states that if there's enough fish left over after the spawning requirements, the natives have the #1 priority to them. And then, and only then, if there's enough fish in excess of the spawning requirements, do the commercial and the sports fishermen get to share in it.
The Sparrow case is extremely important because what that really means is that Aboriginal title is a valid legal concept in Canada, and that as far as it applies to British Columbia, Aboriginal title, as from a legal point of view, still exists.
The Supreme Court of Canada has dictated to the Government of Canada that we must sit down and get together with the Native peoples of Canada, not just the Native Indians, the Inuit, the Métis, and negotiate to try and right the wrongs.
Yeah, that's the problem I have. Sitting down at the same table with this guy talking nice to us and saying, I want to do everything for you, and because the Supreme Court said so. We've been saying that's our, fishing has been our right for a long time.
I agree with everything you're going to tell me today, I'm going to agree with you with, because I agree. But that's not going to change the way we do business. This is only a start. We're building. And I am here today on behalf of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and on behalf of the Minister of Fisheries to tell you that I am bound by law now to be a public servant on your behalf. What it says is that if for any reason the Native peoples cannot get their food fish, all other fisheries will be suspended.
Well, I didn't think you'd come here and expect to have a bed of roses to talk to
No.
people. There's going to be bitterness and angry.
Yes.
A lot of people are going to be pissed
And I'm
off
the guy you can look
about
at.
the process.
But I'm
I've been
committed to it.
fighting Department of Fisheries for a long time now. And trying to get our rights to this lake and roadblocks and whatnot being put in our way by you guys. It's just hard to believe that we're sitting at the same table and saying you're the good guy now. I just can't. I won't believe it until I see it happening.
I'm asking for the opportunity. That's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's right. We'll see.
Any other comments on?
Well, if I was going to spill my guts to you, I'll tell you there is one thought that has never left my mind, and that's in about 1972, my dad was then 70 years old, and I saw a fisheries officer pull a gun on my father because my father was fishing in a river. And that thought will never ever leave my mind until this issue is resolved, because I don't think that my father deserved that kind of treatment. And I hope someday that we will come to a situation with Canadian people where we don't have to pull guns against each other, especially old people like my father, who lived with dignity all of his life and didn't need to be treated like that.
Peter, let's hear there. Gentlemen. Put her down, keep her down. Put her right up on the sandbar. Everything might work. Woo! Hey!
My fight is not only for the resource, my fight is also to turn our economy around into a more community-based economy. And I look like, for instance, one of the greatest salmon in the world is right here. It's called the sockeye salmon. And yet we ship about 75–80% of this sockeye to other places in the world, rather than educating our own people about the value of this fish and sharing it with other Canadian people. Like, we have got to start to bring our kids up to make sure that they know the importance of preserving the salmon for the winter, as opposed to selling the salmon so they can go down and buy a McDonald's hamburger.
Once again, the moon of the sockeye salmon comes and goes.
This feast, this potlatch, is a memorial potlatch for Chief Shearish's wife, Margaret. It's also for his son's son, his grandson, Norman, and also for Auntie Mabel. So he just wants to say to all of you people that his chieftainship will stand here today, and his respect for his wife will be shown.
I lost my auntie a few years ago. She died of heart attack. Not long after that, I lost a grandson in a car accident. And lastly, my wife, which I really miss.
You're looking at the symbol of strength. This great Tateskin, Thunderbird. His source of food comes from the sea. It has been with me for many, many years. I really didn't like to show this in respect to a host, a brother. When I sang my song that goes with this, it tells about a great where you are related to Mother Earth, where you ask your powers. the canoe and its great hunters in preparation for the great event of hunting. They had to give up a lot of things in order to prepare when they are out for whales. They went to great lengths to climb the mountains to prepare for all these things. They had to talk to the Almighty God for 4 days. They only had a few necessities, the way to survive. What you're about to see is a hen Keats that belongs to our family from a Tokod band. The man that's wearing this head mask is going to be coming out when I say, "Hey, you." Oi. Now comes the opening. Hey, you. That's when that thing opens. You see that. You see him in the middle there. You see him in the middle. There, he spreads his wings. It's during that, when this opens, and then when that's all over, Yanada kine kiwe Yahweh yeah Hanskin kamayan taya Yunta yana kine di kashwaya Hanskin kamayan taya Kine never asked for riches. I have never, because of the great dangers of asking for that riches. There's a great price to pay. You can see today the Canada itself as a whole is in great trouble because of the greed. We never asked for riches.
I was in politics for many years, maybe over 20 years. And I know the politics inside out. And you have to be the biggest bullshitter to be a politician, No, I have really grave concerns of which way we're going. There's so much hatred and jealousy in this world. I have real grave concerns because it's affecting everything, what we have as human beings. The world is big enough to share.
There was a story someone told about the 10 relatives. There were 10. There was the south, there was the north, there's the four winds. There's the moon, there's the sun, there's the stars. All had their meanings. And there's the great mountains, the rivers, and the lakes. There's the 10 relative mountains. You see it today when you travel out, you look back. They watch you, they watch the 10 relatives. And there it is, they stand there. One of them, the 11th one, he was the kindest one of them all. He didn't like people destroying anything. He went in the woods, never to return. But when something goes awry in our world, you will hear him. You will hear the rumble. He is called Takit in our language. It's called the earthquake in the other language. He's hiding. But he's very much alive today. You can hear him when he rumbles. It sounds like a very true story. This is about human and bird and fish life.
From among the kelps, where they've been hiding for the last few months, emerge a new generation of herons. They gather mysteriously into large schools.